On the 14th of December 2019, a new tramline opened in the Dutch city of Utrecht. After more than 7 years of planning and construction, a new connection was established between the busiest train station in the country and the Science Park of Utrecht. These two extremely important hubs for transportation and innovation had been connected by numerous bus lines in the past, with line 12 being the most notorious one. It was the busiest bus line in the Netherlands, with 25,000 passengers per day, consisting mainly of students commuting from the train station and the city centre to the university campus in the Science Park. The line had a flexible frequency of up to 30 rides per hour per direction and used double articulated buses with a capacity of more than 200 passengers per bus. The combination of this incredible high demand for transportation and an ever-expanding science park led to the need for a more frequent, faster and reliable transportation method between the two centres. Trams have been running in Utrecht since 1879, but those were discontinued after the war, when car ownership grew exponentially. In 1983, the city built a new tram connecting the modern settlements of Nieuwegein and Ijsselstein to the city. This line looks a lot like a typical German Stadtbahn, with the vehicles running in the median and no street running, but also no grade separation throughout the entire line. Let's take a look at a map and see how the new tram line fits into the city and connects to the other trams and the national rail system. Here you can see a slightly zoomed in map of Utrecht. Very clearly visible is a historic city centre with the iconic bastions signalling the edge of the centre. Also very obvious is the railway running diagonally past the city centre with multiple lines going to cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam and The Hague. Utrecht is known as the beating heart of the Dutch railway system, with the central station being the busiest in the entire country. The new tramline 22 runs parallel to the train tracks for a while and also makes a connection at the train station Utrecht Vaartsche Rijn. After following the train line for about 3 kilometers, the tram makes a turn to the north, where the next stop is located. Galgenwaard is a stadium where the Utrecht Football Club plays. The line then follows the Weg tot de Wetenschap, which translates to the road to science, and stops at the Kromme Rijn. It then makes a turn to the west and enters the Science Park, where it makes a total of 5 stops before ending at the Park and Ride. Designing a transit connection is not as simple as drawing a line to a place where there are a lot of roads and buildings that you can see from a Google Maps. A long study is done beforehand to determine the need for said line and design the optimal route within the given budget. We don't have time to get to the details, but I'll explain a little bit of what you can see along the way and why this line was created. Let's start with the Science Park. It is a 1.8 square kilometer large area outside of the city, which is home to 2 main activity centres. The University of Utrecht, which has around 26,000 students enrolled, has its campus and almost all faculties in this location. There are a few housing lots on the campus itself, but unlike North American universities, most students live in houses and apartments in the city or at least outside of the campus. Quite a few students also live outside of the city and commute in from their hometown via train or bus. Most of these students arrive at Utrecht Centraal. This means that a lot of students have to commute from the city centre or from the train station to the campus. The second main activity centre is the hospital, or rather hospitals. The 6th largest hospital in the Netherlands, the UMCU, is located here. But besides the general hospital, there is also a children's hospital and a military hospital located in the Science Park. These produce not only a lot of patients travelling to the hospital, but are also large employers with lots of employees who have to commute from the surrounding areas. These 3 main groups of people that are attracted by the Science Park, the students, the patients and the employees, are also quite heavy public transit users, with most, if not all students, owning a free public transit travel card provided to them by the government. A lot of patients are also elderly people who might not have the ability to drive and would otherwise be dependent on the taxi to transport them to the hospital. Although I presume most of the patients coming here will be commuting in from the city centre and will therefore be using the buses and not the tram. Although the Science Park might be the main attraction factor for this line, it is certainly not the only one. Along the route there are multiple special attractions that will attract tourists, football fans and more students. First off, you can see the football stadium Galgenwaard, with a capacity of over 23,000 fans. In the same area, around the stops Galgenwaard and the Kromme Rijn, you can also find the Kromhoutkazerne, which is a military barracks housing the headquarters of the Royal Netherlands Army. The Utrecht University College is also located around this area, as is the Rietveld Schröderhuis, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Closer to the train station, you can find the Jaarbeurs, one of the largest conference centers in the country, which also houses the largest cinema in the city of Utrecht. Around the train station, you will be able to find a lot of high-density office spaces. The Dutch national railway operator NS, the Rabobank, and the national railway infrastructure operator ProRail all have their headquarters within a 5-minute walk. Following the line, we can mostly see some dense residential and commercial buildings, including a lot of mixed-use lots that have both residential and commercial facilities. The area around Utrecht Vaartsche Rijn is being heavily developed and can be named a transit-oriented development, or TOD. Besides this, there aren't a lot of current buildings that would make use of this line, although a lot of development is happening. For example, the Science Park is getting a massive upgrade with the new headquarters of the RIVM, the National Public Health Institute, which is to be completed in 2021. After seeing all of this, you can probably already guess that most of the people who are using this line are commuting from either one of the train stations to the Science Park and back. A few passengers will be using it to travel to the stops in between, and on match days it will undoubtedly be buzzing with football fans. The park and ride at the terminus will probably also generate some traffic, but nothing compared to the masses of students travelling to campus each and every day. Oh, and remember that light rail line I talked about in the beginning? The one that connects the two outer settlements of Nieuwegein and Uithoflijn? Here is how that line fits into the new one. It ends at the other side of the train station for now, but will be connected to the new line once the new vehicles are all running and infrastructure is completed. Even though I said I wouldn't get into too many details, I think we can all agree that the map section is now completed. Now that we've done that, I think it's time to take a look along the line and see what it's actually like. I shot this footage on the 23rd of December 2019, so quite a long while back, and only a couple of days after the line had opened. This is why you won't see anyone wearing face masks, which are compulsory in all public transit in the Netherlands during the virus. We're going to be starting at Utrecht Centraal and working our way down the line towards the Science Park. Utrecht Centraal is the most important stop on the line. It's the largest interchange in the city and arguably the country, and houses the busiest train station in the Netherlands. 200,000 passengers board the trains here every day, with thousands more using the extensive bus network and the trams. The hub has two main sides: Centrumzijde, the city centre side, and the Jaarbeurszijde, the Jaarbeurs side, which is named after the nearby conference centre. Both sides have massive bus stations, where bus routes depart connecting all corners of the city and the surrounding towns and villages. The tram platforms are directly connected to the train station via escalators, stairs and a lift. There are 2 island platforms and a total of 4 tracks. The 2 outer tracks run through towards the other side of the station, whilst the 2 centre tracks terminate on this side. Each platform has multiple check-in check-out readers and the usual amenities like benches, bins, maps, timetables and live departure information. There is pretty much always a tram waiting here, so you never have to wait on the platform itself and can go straight into the vehicle. Whilst we're waiting here, let's go and take a look at the vehicles themselves. They are Airbus 100 models built by the Spanish rolling stock manufacturer CAF, and are also used in cities like Amsterdam, Birmingham and Sydney. The tracks are standard gauge, and as such the interior can be quite spacious. Each vehicle has 4 doors per side located in the 2nd and 4th carriages. The 1st, 3rd and 5th are solely for seating. The vehicle can accommodate 62 passengers sitting and 154 standing, for a total of 216 passengers. The seats are made of lightly cushioned material with simple but maybe a little boring grey maquette. There are numerous passenger information displays inside telling passengers where they are and what the next stops are. This information is also relayed via loudspeakers. All in all, the vehicles are quite comfortable and you don't have to sit in them for long, as most people will only make a trip of a maximum of 15 minutes. Now let's take a ride until we arrive at our next station, Utrecht Vaartsche Rijn. As we pull into Vaartsche Rijn, two things are instantly noticeable. First off, it is situated by the canal, the Vaartsche Rijn, and secondly, if you look to the south, you will see that we are right next to a train station with a whole bunch of train tracks, 8 to be precise. This is because Vaartsche Rijn is also a mainline railway station operated by NS. 4 of the tracks have platforms where sprinter trains call, with 5 lines running through from Den Haag to Den Bosch, Woerden to Tiel, Uitgeest to Reden via Amsterdam, and peak hour trains between Breukelen and Veenendaal and between Utrecht and Houten. All of these run with a 30-minute headway and form part of the commute network around Utrecht. Lots of intercity trains going towards Utrecht Centraal pass by here, and you can also catch the occasional freight train. On the other side of the tracks, you can find a bus stop where multiple frequent bus lines stop. You can reach this by walking underneath the train tracks next to the canal, where you can also find a couple of shops. Besides this, there is a whole bunch of medium-density mixed commercial and residential housing around the station. To get to the next station, we will tap in with our OV chipkaart and get on the next tram. They have a 6-minute headway, so you never have to wait for too long. In the background, you can see the football stadium where FC Utrecht plays. It's called Galgenwaard, named after the field where people were hung in the Middle Ages, galg being the Dutch word for a gallows. The entrance of the stadium is about a 5-minute walk away, and although the stadium hasn't seen much use since the pandemic, I can reassure you, quite some people will use this tram stop to go and watch their club play. Almost the entire area surrounding the stop is dedicated to sports. There are multiple sports fields to the south, where you can play football, hockey and cricket. One of the top Dutch hockey teams is located here. Besides this, there isn't too much. There is no residential development nearby that isn't closer to another stop, and besides the stadium amenities, there aren't any commercial establishments either. However, something else that you can find here is a Kromhout barracks, which houses the headquarters for the Royal Netherlands Army. A total of 3,300 workplaces are situated here, and although most of these people will be travelling by car, there will no doubt be some that will take the tram. Since there isn't too much to show around this stop, we can take a look at the amenities that the tram stops have to offer. They are pretty much the same all across the stations, so taking a look at one will tell you what the rest look like too. Ticketing is done with the OV chipkaart system, which is in place across the entire country. Most people using this system will already have a card, but in case that you don't have one, you can buy a ticket at one of the ticketing machines at every station. If you have an OV chipkaart, you can tap in at one of the readers on the platform and then board the tram, unlike trams in Den Haag, Rotterdam and Amsterdam, where you tap in inside of the vehicle. Every stop also has a live departure display, a shelter with a bench, a timetable and map, a bin and tactile paving for the visually impaired. So far, the stations have all been mainly connected to other forms of transit, or serve sports venues. However, the next stop is possibly the most normal when it comes to serving a residential area. It is called the Kromme Rijn and doesn't have too many interesting features surrounding it. To one side there is a low-density residential estate, and to the other side are some fields and a swimming pool. However, if you walk a little further, you will find the University College of Utrecht. This public, English-taught liberal arts college has about 750 undergraduate students. Although most of the students live on campus and travel into the city centre by bike, the college is still a small producer of transit traffic in the area. Just across the busy dual carriageway is the Rietveld Schröder House, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This small, modern house, built in the 1920s by Rietveld Schröder, attracts many tourists throughout the year. Besides all of this, the Kromme Rijn doesn't have a whole lot to offer. It is a lovely calm station where you can watch a tram drive by every 3 minutes. After passing under the always busy A27 motorway, we enter what is known as the Science Park, our first stop being Padualaan. The first part of the Science Park that we see is mostly devoted to the University of Utrecht. With more than 30,000 enrolled students and 7,000 staff, it is a very busy area and the main reason as to why this tramline exists. The University of Applied Sciences has another 35,000 students, making for a grand total of over 70,000 students enrolled. Of course, there are many other facilities here as well, namely the headquarters for the National Institute for Public Health and the Environment, the Dutch equivalent of the US CDC and EPA combined. The tram has not eliminated the need for buses in the area, however. If we look just to the north of the stop, we can see a bus station where even on a public holiday a lot of buses still arrive. This is also where the infamous bus line 12 used to depart from, taking millions of students every year from the campus to the centre and back. Line 28, the other very busy line, still runs and takes students directly to the city centre. Whilst we drive towards the next stop, we can take a quick look at the overhead wires. Something interesting happens here, and it is one of the reasons why the line was delayed. The tram runs through the campus, which has a lot of sensitive equipment in it. This equipment could be influenced and disturbed by the electromagnetic fields caused by the overhead wires. To combat this, instead of having a couple of substations providing the electricity, here the electricity is provided at each second catenary to minimize the magnetic field created by the electricity. You can see this clearly at each catenary in the science park. The little red connectors are the electrical connections. At our next stop, Heidelberglaan, there isn't too much to note that hasn't already been told. It is in the heart of the science park and completely surrounded by faculties and other campus buildings. On the way here we even passed under some buildings. The platforms are shared with buses, the same ones we just saw at Padualaan. Between Heidelberglaan and the next stop there is a large dual carriageway which we cross at grade. Besides this, there really isn't too much to this station. The science park doesn't just house the university, it is also home to one of the largest medical centres in the country. The next stop, UMC Utrecht, is also the name of the nearby medical centre. It stands for University Medical Centre of Utrecht. This stop is mainly used by people travelling to and from the hospital, as it has a perfect connection to the hospital via a footbridge. The footbridge also connects to a parking garage, which is mainly meant for visitors to the hospital. Interesting about this stop is that it actually has two island platforms. The trams stop on the outer platforms, and in the middle there is a dedicated busway. It is a great interchange station for people travelling from the suburbs by bus and changing onto the tram to the train station. The next stop basically only serves the children's hospital VKZ Máxima, named after the Queen of the Netherlands. The W in the name stands for wetenschappelijk, which is Dutch for scientific, hence why we still see the red connectors at the catenary poles here. This station once again has side platforms shared with buses. On the south side of the station there is a level crossing for cars and bicycles. The last station is once again quite interesting. It is a park and ride facility and thereby located in a typical park and ride location, next to the motorway. The parking garage is sleek and modern and is 10 stories tall. Up to 500 cars can be parked here. Platform layout is similar to that at the other end, Utrecht Centraal, but with half the tracks. An island platform serves both. Since this is quite an important park and ride station, some bus lines can also be found here, including the illustrious line 28. The tracks, however, continue onwards past the station and make a 180-degree turn to the right. This is because it is also a staging and storage area for the trams. It is, however, not a maintenance yard and is just meant to store the trams, up to 16, for service on the line. For example, when the morning rush hour is over, UOV could store the trams that aren't running here and have them ready to go for the evening rush hour. Besides all this infrastructure, something random that can be found here is a climbing wall attached to the parking garage. It is part of a nearby sports centre. Soon, the new tram line will connect to the older ones at the central station, making for one of the longest lines in the country. Once this is complete, Utrecht can start thinking about new lines connecting the region, which will be much needed with the projected growth of the population. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to follow me outside of YouTube, head over to my website where I post interesting blogs. I will leave you with this lovely shot of some trams near the central station.